All right, let's dive right in. Today we're looking at Nestlé India's Q3 results for FY25. And we've got the press release, a letter to investors, even the financial statements, both standalone and consolidated.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot to unpack.
It is indeed like our all-access pass behind the scenes.
I think it'll be pretty fascinating to see, how they're doing, especially given how the economy's been.
Yeah, and speaking of the economy, remember last year they made that switch to align their financial year with the calendar year.
Right.
So this is the quarter ending December 31st, 2024.
Yeah.
But even with some of those challenges the chairman mentions, challenging external environment, things seem pretty good for Nestlé India.
Absolutely. They're reporting a total sales growth of 3.9%, reaching INR 4,762.1 crore. Domestic sales also saw a good uptick, growing by 3.3%.
That's solid growth.
It is. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, inflation's been all over the place, and even the chairman talks about, moderation in urban consumption. So how are they doing this?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, let's dig into the specifics, and I think a good place to start is the beverage segment. It's really bubbling over with success.
It is. Beverages were the top performer this quarter,
Well,
contributing the most to the overall growth with a high double-digit increase.
really?
Yeah, and a lot of that can be attributed to, well, the powerhouse that is Nescafé. They've not only maintained their market share, they've actually expanded it, adding an incredible 3.7 million new coffee drinking households.
That's massive.
Yeah.
3.7 million new households choosing Nescafé. There's got to be a reason for that kind of surge in popularity.
Absolutely. While the materials don't get into the specifics, it's likely a combination of factors. I mean, they've been actively innovating with new products, new flavors, and their marketing campaigns have been pretty successful, especially those targeted at younger consumers.
Makes sense.
They've also made significant investments in expanding their distribution network, making sure their products are available even in those hard-to-reach areas.
You just touched on a really crucial point there, distribution. One thing that jumps out from these materials is Nestlé India's focus on expanding its reach, both in urban and rural markets. In fact, according to Nielsen, they've had one of the most impressive expansions amongst all food and beverage companies in the last year.
Yeah.
It's got to be impacting you too, right?
Yeah.
I bet you've seen more Nestlé products popping up in stores lately.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where their urban strategy comes into play. It's about bridging that gap between rural and urban markets, ensuring consistent availability and catering to the unique needs of each segment.
Right. So it's not just about increasing visibility.
Exactly. It's about building trust and loyalty with a wider range of consumers.
And building that trust is so important, especially in a market as diverse and dynamic as India. But Nestlé isn't just stopping there. They're also investing in their manufacturing capabilities, specifically with a brand new confectionery unit at their Sanan factory. I'm guessing that has something to do with the double-digit growth they're seeing in their confectionery segment, particularly with Kit Kat.
It's all connected. This new unit allows them to increase production, introduce new product varieties, and ultimately meet that growing demand for their chocolate treats. Remember that Find the Golden Kit Kat campaign?
Oh, yeah.
That's just one example of how they're engaging consumers and creating buzz around their brands.
I have to admit, I was tempted to join that hunt for the Golden Kit Kat, but let's not forget about their pet care segment, which seems to be quietly exceeding expectations. It's actually seen its highest growth ever since being integrated back in 2022. Who knew pet food could be such a perfect growth driver?
It is fascinating, isn't it, Felix? Their premium cat food brand seems to be leading the pack. Benefiting from the rise of e-commerce and quick commerce, people are increasingly pampering their pets, seeking out premium specialized food, and Nestlé is capitalizing on that trend.
So they're hitting it out of the park, with beverages expanding their reach and finding growth even in unexpected places like pet food. But they're not just about satisfying cravings. They're also making some strategic moves in the health and wellness space.
Absolutely. The recent integration of their Nestle Health Science joint venture with Dr. Reddy's Laboratories Ltd. is a significant development. This partnership gives them a stronger foothold in the rapidly growing market for nutritional solutions and therapeutic products.
Yeah, it's a smart move considering the increasing awareness of health and well-being, both in India and globally.
Exactly. People are becoming more proactive about their health, seeking out products that address specific needs and contribute to overall wellness. Nestlé is clearly positioning itself to be a leader in this space, and this partnership with Dr. Reddy's gives them a significant advantage.
It's like they're saying, we're not just here for your morning coffee or a chocolate break. We're here for your long-term health and well-being.
Precisely. And this focus on well-being extends beyond just consumers. Nestle is also making commendable efforts in the area of sustainability, particularly when it comes to addressing climate concerns.
Yeah, this is something that really stood out to me. They've installed a remarkable number of biodigesters, 5,800 small ones and 200 large ones on dairy farms across Punjab and Haryana. Now, for those who aren't familiar, these biodigesters help reduce methane emissions, generate renewable energy, and even improve manure management.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive.
It's a win-win situation for the environment and the farmers. It's a great example of how Nestle is integrating sustainability into its core operations rather than treating it as a separate initiative.
And, speaking of creating a positive impact, I was particularly touched by the story of Project Vriddhi, a rural development program in New District that's celebrating its 5-year anniversary.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Over the past 5 years, this project has impacted 14 villages and positively touched the lives of 18,000 individuals. It's a great example of Nestle's commitment to creating shared value and making a difference in the communities where it operates.
It really adds another layer to Nestlé India's story,
Mm.
showing that they're not just focused on profit, but also on making a positive contribution to society.
And that commitment shines through in everything they do, from their focus on responsible sourcing to their efforts to empower women and improve livelihoods in rural communities.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already, and I'm getting the sense that Nestlé India is firing on all cylinders. But let's get down to brass tacks and take a closer look at the financials, shall we?
Absolutely. Let's dive into the numbers and see what they reveal about Nestle India's financial health.
Now, when we look at the standalone financials, their profit from operations stands at a healthy 20.3% of sales, with a net profit of INR 696.1 crore and earnings per share clocking in at INR 7.22.
Right, and they've declared a second interim dividend of INR 14.25 per equity share, payable on February 27th. This on top of the first interim dividend of INR 2.75 per share paid earlier in the fiscal year suggests they're confident in their financial position and committed to sharing profits with their investors.
So they're keeping their investors happy, but there are also some exceptional items listed in the financial statements. What's the story there?
Good catch. These exceptional items relate to a couple of divestitures that Nestle India has undertaken. Firstly, they've sold their nutraceutical business to their joint venture with Dr. Reddy's, which makes perfect sense given their strategic focus on expanding that partnership.
Right. And the second divestiture.
That involves the sale of their Nestle Business Services division to Nestle Business Services India Private Limited, previously known as Purina Petcare India Private Limited. It's interesting because this divestiture might indicate a shift in how they manage their pet care business going forward.
That definitely raises some questions about their long-term plans for that segment. Perhaps we can unpack that a bit further as we delve deeper into these results. But before we do, why don't we take a quick pause here?
Sounds good. We'll be back in a flash to continue our deep dive into Nestle India's Q3 performance. Welcome back. You'll notice we're picking up right where we left off, delving deeper into Nestle India's Q3 performance. Before the break, we were talking about those exceptional items. Remember, it seems Nestle India is strategically reshaping its portfolio.
It does feel like they're streamlining, focusing on those high-growth areas. And speaking of which, remember how they highlighted e-commerce as a major growth driver?
Right.
High double-digit growth there, contributing 9.1% to domestic sales. That's not just listing products online. It's a whole different game.
What's really interesting here is how they're achieving this e-commerce success. It's a combination of, tapping into that quick commerce trend, offering premium products online, and those strategic initiatives to attract new customers digitally. They're not just riding the wave, they're shaping it.
And it's paying off, especially for some of their power brands.
Yeah.
The press release specifically calls out Kit Kat, Nescafé,
Mm-hmm.
of course the ever-popular Man GI, all performing exceptionally well online.
This is a lot about the strength of these brands and how adaptable they are. They're not just household names, they're online favorites too, keeping pace with how consumers are changing how they shop.
Right. And they also mention continued growth in their organized trade business. Now, for those listening, this basically means their presence in modern retail stores like supermarkets. And guess what? Magi Noodles beverages their premium product lines. Those are leading the charge there as well.
It's a consistent theme, wouldn't you say? Across different channels, consumers are drawn to convenience, premium experiences, and brands they can trust.
And let's not forget the out-of-home segment.
Right.
Cafes, restaurants on the go snacks.
Yeah.
This was hit hard during the pandemic, but it's coming back strong, with double-digit growth for Nestle this quarter.
It's not just a recovery, though. They're really transforming this segment. Premiumization is key. Expanding beyond major cities, attracting those new customers. It's like they're anticipating where people will be and making sure Nestle is right there with them.
I've even seen those Nestle Retail One kiosks popping up everywhere, from college campuses to hospitals. It's a smart move, especially as people are out and about more, getting back to their pre-pandemic routines.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's clear that Nestle India is laser focused on being wherever their consumers are, whether it's online in a supermarket or grabbing a quick bite. But their ambition doesn't stop at India's borders. The press release also highlights strong export growth.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Powered by their nutrition products, instant tea confectionery.
Okay.
And even their coffees are making a splash internationally. Double-digit growth in coffee exports is really impressive. It speaks to the quality and the demand for Indian coffee globally.
Yeah, what I find particularly noteworthy is their introduction of homegrown brands like Nestle Munch, Nescafe Sunrise, even Maggi Masala E-Magic to new markets like the US and the UAE.
It's like they're taking a piece of India to the world, showcasing these unique flavors and culinary traditions. It's a bold move, but considering their track record, I wouldn't bet against them.
Of course, no business operates in a vacuum.
Right.
There are always challenges.
Right.
And one that looms large for Nestle, as the chairman mentioned, is the issue of commodity prices.
Right. Prices for key ingredients like coffee, cocoa, cereals, those remain pretty firm. This could impact their profitability, especially considering their focus on beverages and confectionery.
Exactly. And while edible oil prices have stabilized, which is good news, and milk and packaging prices are currently stable, the uncertainty around these key commodities is something investors will be watching closely.
It all boils down to how Nestlé India manages these input costs. Will they adjust their pricing strategies, find efficiencies in their supply chain? These are the questions everyone's asking.
It's a balancing act, for sure. They need to protect their margins while remaining competitive and making sure their products are still accessible to a wide range of consumers.
Okay, so we've got this interesting mix of impressive performance, strategic moves, and potential challenges on the horizon. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I want to take a moment to appreciate the level of detail Nestle India provides in these materials. We've got profit breakdowns by product category, insightful commentary on each business segment, even a glimpse into their sustainability initiatives.
This transparency is commendable. It lets us go beyond those headline numbers and really understand the nuances of their operations and their strategic direction. But let's zoom in further, shall we? The press release highlights some specific product group performances that I think deserve a closer look.
Excellent point. Let's start with prepared dishes and cooking aids, where Megay is king. They're not resting on their laurels, though. They're actively building their spicy and Korean ranges, catering to evolving tastes and experimenting with new flavors.
It's a clever way to keep the brand fresh and exciting, appealing to a wider range of palates. And it fits perfectly with their urban strategy. Remember how they extended their Maggi Atta noodles to this market? It's all about reaching new consumers while staying true to local tastes.
And while we're talking about reaching new consumers, we can't forget about their pet care business, which, as we've established, is on a roll. Felix and Friskies, their cat food brands, are the stars of the show. Benefiting from that boom in e-commerce and quick commerce,
It's like they've tapped into this growing trend of pet humanization. People are treating their pets like family members, and they're willing to spend top dollar on premium pet food. Nestle is capitalizing on that emotional connection.
absolutely. Moving on to milk products and nutrition. Their iconic Milkmaid brand saw growth, particularly during the festive season, thanks in part to their innovative Milkmaid mini format.
It's proof that even a classic brand can stay relevant and appeal to modern consumers with a little ingenuity. And let's not forget about confectionery. MUNCH is holding strong, particularly in regional markets, even launching a new variant, MUNCH Max Nuts.
And, of course, there's Kit Kat, continuing its journey towards premiumization with new product launches and those engaging marketing campaigns like Find the Golden Kit Kat. But I think we've saved the best for last, powdered and liquid beverages.
Yes, the engine of their growth. No surprises here. Strong performance, driven by their core Nescafe brands, Classic, Sunrise, and Gold. And what's particularly interesting is the success of Nescafe Roastery, their super premium coffee offering.
It seems like consumers are developing a taste for luxury, willing to shell out a bit more for those unique and elevated coffee experiences.
It's indicative of a broader trend, wouldn't you say? People are seeking quality indulgence and a touch of exclusivity, and Nestle is expertly catering to that desire.
So whether it's a comforting cup of Nescafe, a playful Kit Kat break, or a nourishing bowl of Meiji Nestle India, seems to have a winning formula across its diverse product categories. They're balancing innovation with their core strengths, adapting to changing consumer preferences and leveraging technology to connect with their audience in meaningful ways.
They're operating in a complex and constantly evolving market. And yet they're not just surviving, they're thriving. It's a testament to their strong leadership, their brand equity, and their deep understanding of the Indian consumer.
It's truly remarkable, and I'm eager to see what they have in store for us in the coming quarters. But I think we've covered a lot of ground in this segment. What do you say we take a moment to synthesize all this information and then come back to wrap up our deep dive with some final thoughts and key takeaways?
That sounds like a plan. We'll be back shortly to tie it all together.
Okay, we've explored Nestle India's Q3 performance, really, from all angles. Crunching numbers, dissecting strategies, uncovering some hidden gems. Now let's step back and see what it all means for you.
Think of it this way. We've just finished like a delicious meal, and now it's time to savor those flavors, digest the experience, and take away some key insights.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest takeaways for me is Nestle India's resilience.
Yeah.
Despite facing some headwinds, inflation shifting consumer behavior, they've managed to deliver some solid top-line growth. It's like they have a secret recipe for success.
And if we look at that recipe, we see some key ingredients. Strong brand performance, strategic investments, expanding into new markets, new channels, and a constant focus on innovation. They're not just relying on the old favorites, they're actively looking for new opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. Remember how impressed we were with their performance in pet care and health and wellness? These are areas with huge growth potential, and Nestle India is really positioning itself to be a leader in these spaces. It's a smart move, especially as people become more health conscious and, let's be honest, more willing to pamper their furry friends.
It's about adapting to those evolving consumer needs and diversifying their portfolio to make sure they're sustainable in the long run. But it's not just about chasing profits, is it? Their commitment to sustainability is really commendable. Those biodigesters on the dairy farms, Project Vidi, these initiatives show a real desire to make a positive impact.
It's refreshing to see a company that takes its responsibility seriously, both to the environment and to the communities where it operates. And speaking of responsibility, they're keeping their investors happy with those healthy dividend payouts. It's a clear sign of confidence in their future prospects.
Absolutely. Nestle India has a long history of rewarding its shareholders, and this latest dividend announcement reinforces that commitment. They're creating value not just for themselves, but for those who believe in their vision.
But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? There are still some potential challenges on the horizon. Those commodity prices could squeeze margins if they keep going up. And the competition in the FMCG sector is fierce. It's a constant battle for market share and consumer attention.
You're absolutely right. Complacency is not an option in this industry. To stay on top, Nestle India needs to remain agile, innovative, and in tune with the ever-changing needs and desires of the Indian consumer.
So what's the big takeaway here for you, dear listener? What can we learn from this deep dive into Nestle India's Q3 performance?
I think it comes down to this. Nestle India is a company in transition, a company that's evolving.
They're building on their legacy of success while also embracing the future, adapting to a world that's changing so quickly. The question is, how will they keep balancing these seemingly opposite forces? How will they leverage their traditional strengths while moving into uncharted territory? Those are the questions we'll be thinking about as we watch Nestle India's journey unfold. And for those of you who want to dig even deeper, I encourage you to explore their website, check out their investor relations materials, and stay tuned for their next quarterly update. It's a fascinating story, and we'll be here to guide you through it step by step, insight by insight. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that thirst for knowledge alive. And remember, the world of business is full of surprises, just waiting to be discovered. Happy exploring.